How you doing, bud?
It's good to hear the music. I always get a little, I always either get a little amped or kind of take an exhale, give a big sigh of relief. It feels good. It feels good to connect. Feels good to be back. Feels really good to talk to you. Be back on board today and be ready to cast. Today is August 15th, the year 2023. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 705.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking quite a bit the last week, and
daily.
Obviously it's been a real tough week for everybody around the C26 community.
Been one of those times where, and I think we had a question, even like the closed Facebook group, and I think we both forget sometimes. I do that. 90% of people that listen to the podcast aren't on Facebook or aren't in the Facebook group, so they're we're solid. We do two a week, two podcasts a week for basically, the last 6 years. Couple one-offs, couple breaks here and there for some things that happened. But I saw somebody post in there yesterday, and I kind of like, hey, where are you guys at? Everything okay? Where you been? And yeah, we did. Obviously, if you're a regular listener, we took last week off. We had you've heard us. She's been on our podcast, Summer Scandridge. She is a vital piece of our C26 community and operations in general. We mentioned her at almost the end of every podcast episode. She is our director of operations and kind of keeps our ship afloat and does all the great things that you and I would fail miserably at. She's been an athlete of ours for 5 or 6 years, also an incredibly close friend of both you and I's, frequents at all the camps, team races, and not this last Sunday, but the Sunday before, she lost her husband, Chris, in a just one of those senseless tragedies and accidents that you just can't, you can ask why, and we always try to find the good things in life or the reasons, and it's just kind of one of those things where it's like the definition of senseless, and it just doesn't make sense. And so Chris is a guy you and I have met before. We stay at their house. He cooked us steaks when we went down there, when we first started working with Summer. Yep. Before Texas 70.3, he's been at a lot of team races, all around, just great guy, great father. And he leaves behind 2 kids, Maddie and Hudson, who, it's just a hard week for you and I and the whole community when something like that happens. And you grieve and you rally and you grieve some more, and then and it's just, the more questions that are left unanswered, I think the harder the longer the grieving process is. And I know that's true for a lot of us, and not just as obviously a staff member, but as an athlete, and more importantly, a close friend and just a centerpiece of our community. And so it's been rough. It's been a rough week for you and I. We obviously chose to take the week off, and we didn't do a lot of other things. We had took time to grieve and communicate and help her out and her family as much as we can, and we continue to do so she can take the time that she needs to do what she needs to do. And so I thought it was important that we did that, and a lot of times we move on in life and pretend like things are okay because we want to show that we're hard, right? That we got this, and that it's not phasing us, or but sometimes you gotta take the time to feel it. And I know most of us aren't huge fans of feeling much these days, especially, mostly endurance sports athletes, unless it's, a threshold session. Most people avoid life's feelings and emotions and things like that. But yeah, it was a really, really, really tough week for everyone. Obviously, Summer, specifically, and their families. So we will continue to support them and think of them and do what we can. But hard week and a lot of tears shed. But we both thought that getting back on today was, again, just like last week was not doing it was part of the healing process and giving us space to grieve. I think getting back on the horse today is also part of it. And so, yeah, tough week, and that's why we were off. But yeah, we're back today.
Yeah. I mean, we obviously talked, like you said, every day. And, it was one of those things where you don't understand anything like this. And it's just, we didn't know what to say. And, it's just sort of like, it just puts perspective in what we're doing. But also on the other hand, it's like we said, we do think the best thing we can do is just probably keep doing the best we can with the community that, is out there. And there's a lot of people that love the community, and they've been incredible. And so, we started, and we just want to, keep doing the best we can, and, maybe even better, just to continue to make sure we're doing what we do and connecting people, because we saw such an outpouring of love and support and prayers for Summer and her family. And it's just, it's been a tough, but like you said, you kind of gotta, figure out what to do next, and just kind of going through the fire, as Bukowski would say,
So true. I think that's one of the hardest parts of it. But part of that again is I know last week we took time to do things, and that helped us heal. And I think today is part of that process, as part of that healing process for us. And hopefully as we continue on and we talk through training and life and racing throughout our podcast today, one of the main reasons we do this podcast and not so we can, help us navigate life through our conversations and how we, talk through things and work through things in our own head, and then how we vocalize it together as best friends, but then also help the listeners, right, think through things and give them the space to do that. And it's not not always a metric driven or data driven or top 10, ways to make you faster driven, which I think just continuously feeds that cycle, right, of comparison and like expectations, and I got to get better, and so-and-so's doing this. A lot of what we do, and a lot of why I love what we do, is it not only helps us process things, but it helps you, the listener, a lot of times process things, and which is why we call it a triathlon related podcast. And if it's your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe, and just podcasts in general. Tons of valuables. We appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open and honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes looking ready for his 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we'll use the feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion today. We also frequently utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question, we'll let you right in. Awesome community, fantastic resource, and just a solid all-around place to get great intel, great information, get support, answer questions. We'll go in there at least once a month, do a little bit of a Q&A, take the pulse of the community. And before I go any further, a big thanks to our community. If we can, we'll drop our team set up just our team specifically set up a GoFundMe for Summer and her kids and her family to help them through the next, however long we can. And you guys have really contributed. I think we're just over 43,000, which is just awesome. And really a testament to the amazing group that you all are as listeners, but and not triathletes, but as people, as human beings. And so we'll put the link to that in the show notes today if you wanted to contribute. That's great. But a huge shout out. I posted that in our closed Facebook group and had some great response. And again, we don't, like I said in the post, we don't do sponsors, we don't do ads, but we do family. And, if you've ever wanted to support us in a monetary way through, a donation or whatever, do it do it for him, do it for the kids, and do it for Summer and their family. You can skip over us. We don't need it. And it'll be much put better to use in that department. But outside of that, we do no sponsors. We do no ads, but we do have an agenda. And that's to do our best to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah, we do. And we had a little talk beforehand. And one of the things that was sort of on my mind, because I'm doing Wisconsin and I went down to Madison this weekend, and I wrote this in the athlete email, and it kind of, sparked our conversation. And I really want to get into what you were talking about because it's awesome. And I was, we went down to Madison to ride a couple loops, and I just, I really was not wanting to do it at all. I wasn't looking forward to it. And then what I wrote in there is I wasn't looking forward to it, but it's done. And then I started thinking about, but it's done, and how, but it's done seems like sort of this weird code for living and building, because building something is rewarding. And I think that, I'm not sure how fun it was and how fun things like this are at times, but there's something about the deep satisfaction that reminds me that maybe building is what's missing from a lot of people's lives. And, it's like we hire out to do everything, for us, you go grocery shopping or build this or build that for us. But, I was just thinking, like, what else could I have done other than go ride once I was there? I could have slept in and just had a big breakfast and kind of just sipped on coffee all day. But there's something about just layering on top of it's really about building strength and building the ability to deal with, tougher things in life, not only the race. I mean, because obviously you have to build up and you have to build calluses and get through these training sessions to be ready for racing, but also it translates into life. And like you were saying, I want to turn it over to you because you just did a little calculation about how much training we actually do. And, what we can take away from training and what you learn from watching that Netflix thing. And I think that's so important. I think we lose track of what we're about to talk about. And I just think it's really the essence sort of why we do everything. It's kind of like we had a few episodes on, what is your why? And I think for me, the more I get deeper into this, and you're absolutely right that we get on here every day and talk through these things because, sometimes I just feel like, what the hell, who, what do I know? But you got to kind of sort it out. And you and I having these discussions is so helpful because, a lot of people will just go out and have a, 5-hour ride by themselves and not have anybody to talk through what just happened. And then you start just being over obsessed about the race and forget about the big picture.
And again, we talked about this, leading up to going live today, but you hear a lot in the sports performance world, especially it's like 5-6 years ago in Team Sky and Chris Froome and those guys. It was all about marginal gains, and we also found out, as usual, they were cheating, but marginal gains and increases performance, right? You see every triathlon ad, whether it's race wheels or a helmet or a wetsuit, everybody uses like a percentage, right? Or an increase in performance, whether it's, take 3% off your half Ironman time, or this training plan is proven to increase, to decrease time by 7.5%, or, this bike saves you 12 watts, or this change does this, so there's everything is about performance. It's about gains. It's about comparison, right? Even athletes, right? As coaches, we see this daily, right? We see it daily. Well, I saw this, I did this similar ride a couple weeks ago, and there was a 1 watt difference or a 6 watt difference, or I was faster, I was a little bit slower today. Everything is about a little bit of gains, right? All of it is performance based. And as we went through things last week and unfortunately, reminded of the heaviness and the unpredictability and the sometimes just senseless, tragic, horrific nature that life can be sometimes, I know you and I are both reminded of that. I'm very, very thankful to, and not just this last week, but in life in general, is to have this background in endurance sports that helps, if you let it, cultivate and create a mental toughness and an emotional strength that goes well beyond any race physical performance that you'll ever have. And I was doing these calculations before we went on, is that, about how much of our lives we focus on training. And again, go back to performance gains. And if you're a person that averages 12 hours a week of training year round, and I would say for most age groupers, that's very high, especially if you talk about on the year round level. That's a lot of time, right? But it seems like it's your whole life. Your training is your whole life. Looking up gear is your whole life. Rummaging through race-specific messaging boards is your whole life. Or, the countdown clock to race day is your whole life. Well, if you're that person, right, that actually averages 12 hours a week year-round, that's 1 month of your year. That's it. 1 month of your year. So the rest of the months of the year, the 11 months is your life, is your day-to-day, is your sleeping, is your eating, is your fueling, is your work, is your relationships, is your friendships, managing through your past, traumatic experiences, your present anxiety, and your future worries. 11 months to one. That's not even a close comparison. And again, that's for the person who's training that much. But yet we use that time and we use that effort and all this energy, and so many athletes get caught up in I gotta have a race, I gotta have a race, I gotta have a race. And what happens is you, when you don't have a race, or you get demotivated from a race, which is why I think it's so incredibly important to pick the right race. If you're race motivated, you're not so process oriented, right? You're more externally motivated than internally motivated. I mean, I work with athletes that would just flat out won't train unless they have a race. They just won't. And then I have athletes who honestly don't care if they race at all. They'll train all year, never miss a session, maybe race one time. That's just part of who they are. It helps them process life, deal with stress, deal with everything else, deal with the obstacles, the unpredictability. And the differences you can see in individuals that, again, are more race focused is when they quit training, you don't just lose, right? Everyone talks about detraining, right? From a physical performance standpoint, everyone's so worried about the physical, limitations that we put on ourselves when we skip runs, or we take weeks off, or we take months off, or I'm worried I'm gonna get slower. But you rarely ever hear people talk about the mental and emotional detraining from stopping. And again, going back to why it's so important to choose the right race, it's so it's attainable and you can do it. So it doesn't encourage you to stop training. Is that what we do as endurance athletes specifically is we, day to day, week to week, every month out of the year, we provide ourselves opportunities to persevere, to be persistent, to be resilient, to overcome obstacles, to prove to ourselves that we are faster, are stronger, are fitter, whether it's about losing weight or gaining weight, whether it's about changing how we see ourselves, whether it's about how we look to ourselves in the mirror, whether it's about dealing with stress or setting a good example. Like, none of those are about, or very few of those are about, clicking off a faster pace. It helps you deal with life. And when you distance yourselves from endurance sports and you distance yourself from training, you lose a little bit, right? You lose some physical performance. That's a given. But the biggest impact, right? And again, that impact on your physical performance really only affects that percentage of the month of the year of your training that I discussed earlier. Very small percentage. But when you calculate it over the loss of being less mentally tough to losing emotional strength, and the impact that has on the other hours of your day is huge. I mean, it's huge. I've yet to meet a person ever, probably never will, that has said, man, training for endurance sports, whether it's swimming, cycling, running, sprint triathlons, marathons, ultras, Ironmans, gravel race, whatever it is, it's really made me a mentally weaker person.
Yeah.
No one's ever said that, ever. Because it provides you these opportunities day to day, week to week. Yes, the races are important, but even if you took them away, what you get and what you're able to do and overcome, like it's one of those things that's almost, it's to me, it's priceless. And it's always something that I gravitate towards for myself. I mean, I found myself back in the pool this week and not being in the best pool shape, but I just got in and swam quietly. But it was also thankful that I could even do that I've been doing the sport for so long that I could hop in and swim for 3,000 and just think through things and think through life and not be distracted. And I wasn't, confined to a couch with a bag of Doritos and a Netflix show. That's not going to make you feel better. Making me feel better for like 2 seconds, when you're going to have major repercussions for for a while. And, before we went live, I was talking about, I've been watching this Netflix documentary called The Quarterback on, I think Peyton Manning does it again. It's on Netflix. And Hayden and I have been watching it. And Kirk Cousins was talking about this body work that he does. And he was telling the couple, I think, that does his body work in his house. He said, if you can just make me 3% better, just 3%, that's huge. And for him, it's a performance thing. But for us as regular age group athletes who do this for fun, right? Who it's a hobby, who we do it to enrich our lives, a lot of times we let the pendulum swing way, way, way too far to the performance aspect and never let it swing back on the mental and emotional gains we can have from it. And it's unfortunate that it takes times like these to remind people of the benefits, whether you're racing or not, that the hardness, and the abilities that endurance sports give you, it really is a testament to the work and the benefit that you get. I mean, I know for me, I think the combination of being in endurance sports, even when I was drinking and was active in my alcoholism, like even during that period, and I was still doing endurance sports, I was still racing a ton and at a decently high level. I've combined that, what I learned and what I gained from that, and then when I combined that with my treatment, I totally, and then I went through this really, really, really hard 1.5, 2 years of life that, on the surface probably seemed impossible to a lot of people. But I fully believe that it was that combination of endurance sports background and the mental hardening and not in a bad way, but in a tough and a persistent way. It is a huge piece of the recipe that I believe it has allowed me to be, staring down the pipe of, 10 years sober in November, and still being able to navigate things in life and not choosing to pick up a beer and stuff like that. Like I think we lose sight. And like you said before, I just got to get it done. A lot of days, that is the biggest win you can ask for. And it is a huge benefit and just another, brick in the wall of almost being impossible to tear down.
Yeah. I mean, I think the irony a lot of times with this whole thing is that, at least for me, some of the best, I guess, most content places that I'm ever at are during training. I mean, there's something very difficult about getting off the couch and, like you said, the Netflix, whatever, getting out of bed, whatever it is. But then when I'm in that, breath in the moment out there, even Saturday with the ride, as difficult as it was, there's something so magical about being in that place. And I told you before the cast, I kind of think that, those types of rides or just training in general, a lot of times becomes a microcosm of how I feel at the end of an Ironman. When you come through the finish line and then, your friends are around and you're just talking to them and you are completely in the moment. You are engaged in the conversation. You have no worries in the world. And to me, that's a goal, right? That's a long-term goal. That's really what I sort of, that's kind of my mantra, is wanting to feel like that, right? So it's kind of training to get your mind calm and like I said, and I even said in the email, I said, get your mind at peace and listen to your gut. And what's the right thing to do. It's just sometimes harder than others because it feels uncomfortable. And like you said, I mean, I remember all those times when, you were performing at a high level and, we were just going hard, man. And, that is a toughness, but every time that happens, that's kind of how I've lived my life, really, is like to force myself into uncomfortable places because I know it's the right thing to do most of the time. It's not easy to get up and go do something when you're feeling like shit or whatever, but then it's sort of like it's toughening your mind and it's toughening your body to be more resilient and get through that kind of thing. And I think people beat themselves up a lot. It's sort of like, I was thinking about this thing too about, because this sport is so nutritionally based and, the obsession with, watts and power and things like that. But there's also obsession with nutrition and, just eating daily in general and how easy it is to sort of fall off the train and just start eating garbage or whatever like that. But I think that, it's important to remember that while there's a lot of foods out there that aren't quote unquote good for our body, but food is food. And I think we we're overly difficult on ourselves, if we do something like that, right? And sometimes our body is just saying, just give me something, give me some fuel. We worked hard today, whatever. And then, but you know what I mean? So it's easy to get off a ride like that and eat like crap or whatever, and then just feel guilty about it. And I don't think that that's a good mindset. It's like, all right, well, I didn't eat the greatest. I don't feel the greatest, but let's figure out a way to get through it. And I think that's all part of the process. And, we can over obsess and be pristine about everything we do in life. And, whatever, drinking tap water and there's fluoride in it. And we, feel guilty about things like that. And there's nothing you can really do about it. We also forget that our body is infinitely, probably the best filtration system ever there was. We can try to eat the perfect things or whatever, but our body is capable as long as we don't overindulge, right? So I don't know. I just want to bring that up because it's been on my mind because I think a lot of people, including me, have this ideal about everything, whether it's nailing every workout or eating perfectly all the time, resting perfectly, and it just doesn't seem like it's possible. So now mentally we have to get through that and be okay with it and realize that, we are resilient. And I think, again, it's sort of building through training makes us stronger to deal with certain situations. I mean, we've all, felt like shit after a night out and got up and actually worked out and got through it. You don't want to do that all the time, but I also don't think we should obsess with complete perfection all the time because it can be a tremendous energy sap. Do you ever think about stuff like that? Because it's like, whatever, I ate ice cream the other day or something, whatever. It's just silly little things, but we don't need to.
Yeah. I mean, no, I think everybody, they're never exact, I don't think, but I think everybody analyzes decision-making and questions, right? Like, one of my, I do it all the time, even I did it this last week, a ton.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I went back to that movie Sliding Doors. It's like, I think back in the 80s or 90s or whatever. And it's basically two movies in one where the wife catches the subway, barely the subway door, gets on it, goes to work and never finds out these things about her husband. And the other one, she barely misses it by, a half second. And then she goes home and finds things out about her husband. And it's about how just that split second changes her entire life from making that door to not making the door. And so I think we all think about it, decisions and what affects what, and was it a good decision or what is a bad decision? And yeah, I think a lot of times they're clear, they're clear, they're concise. I woke up this morning and my ride was shit, and it's because I was up till 1:00 last night, partying, dancing, and eating like shit. All right, that's a pretty easy one for me. But then we also have plenty that you just wake up, again, like we talk about all the time, you wake up feeling like you're going to just absolutely nail your workout, and you just lay an egg, and vice versa. You think you're going to lay an egg, and you just absolutely dominate it. There is no rhyme or reason, but we love to try and figure out why. And I think one of the gifts we can give ourselves is why I think trying to understand why is important in a lot of ways. I think a huge piece, and again, a gift, is to be able to just accept a lot of things and move on with the decision and the commitment to just do the best you can, regardless of what happened. To not, overanalyze or obsess or I didn't do this. Is just to accept it and move on and do your best, because that's honestly, that's all we can do anyway.
Yeah.
You cannot go back and change things. You can't go back and fix it. We talk about this a lot with athletes, you missed a lot. Just accept where you are and move on. The more you try to catch up or pick up or overload because you missed out, the more likely you are to screw it up. The more likely you are to be overtrained or get hurt. Like, you're just going to make mistakes. So I think everybody does that, again, to some kind of extent, because we're all, we fool ourselves into, thinking we can predict and plan and know everything that's going to happen. And then we're just shocked and stunned when life reminds us, sometimes gently, sometimes harshly, that we have zero control. Zero.
Yeah.
But the best control you can have, right? And this is going back to, laying an egg or not laying an egg, is on race day, the only two things you can control are your effort and your execution. That's it. That is it. You can't control if you get kicked in the goggles in the swim. You can't control if you forgot, to, zip your wet tube up perfectly and you got chafed in the neck. You can't, if you lost a bottle coming out, or a volunteer dropped it, or you got a flat, or, or something happened to your bike and your Di2 battery just happened to, shit out, or, you got a calf cramp on them. Like, some of the things you just can't control. Can't. And so instead of just obsessing about what's not happening or what did happen that you couldn't control, or that is just so sad and so unfortunate, and you're, throwing yourself pity parties, the best you can do is just understand it happened and moving forward and do the best I can. And that is enough. Just like you said about your ride this last weekend, right? Rather than the best, you might not have been amped, but it's done.
Yep.
And it's tested. And that is one of those things where we need to continue to remind ourselves up that is just the best we got some days. I mean, I'm having this conversation with Hayden a lot in the last few weeks as he's been home, ready to go back to school tomorrow. Thank you, Lord Jesus. And he doesn't understand, that we're both working. And I'm like, buddy, I'm just telling you right now, I'm doing the best that I can. I can play with you some, I cannot play some. This is the best I got today. Or last week when it was really, really rough, and there were just some days that, if I wasn't going to swim, there were some days I just went and sat downstairs in the basement in the dark and just sat. That's what I needed. It was the best you got, is the best you had to do.
Yeah.
And that's just one of those. And last night he played his first baseball game of the year, and this is pretty, I think, a decent analogy, but he, to be honest, when we practice in the backyard, he hadn't picked up a baseball or bat since June. And he missed his first practice last week because we got hockey. And I was like, I mean, we need to go out. We need to go out back and throw a little bit just to kind of get we don't want this to be just an embarrassment. He is not in the baseball. He is not a practice guy. He is timid. He is thinks too much. But when he gets on the field, totally different. And he made this like running grab and out on first base. And then about, I think, the fifth or sixth inning, he got this huge pop up. I mean, it went sky high. And he's sitting there at third base and he just sat underneath it. And I was like, oh my God. He's like, most kids, at his age are like running away from it. They're like, I kind of want to catch it, but I really kind of don't. Like, they're like, go, gadget arm, extend 10 feet. I think I'm going to catch it, but they're like, eyes are closed. And he just sat there underneath it, really trying to catch it, and just went off the edge of his glove. And everybody was like, oh, but no one expected him to catch it. It just would have been like the miracle of the day. And he wasn't just, he was like, oh man, God, like he wasn't beating himself, but he was just like, man, I almost had it. And we left the game, and he, in my opinion, he probably played the best defense of anybody out there. He went 2 for 2, and we got done with the game. And I said, man, you did awesome today. I said, you know what I'm most proud of? And he said, what? And I said, when you almost caught that fly ball. And he said, well, I didn't catch it. But he said, I almost did. I was this close. And I said, I know. I said, but what I'm proud of is you sat there. You didn't run. You didn't hide. You sat underneath it and you went for it. To me, that's everything. Whether you caught it or not, that shows me you put your best foot forward. You were probably scared and you still did it anyway. The other stuff was easy, but that was the highlight. And I think that message is the exact message that we need to hear in life with what we do and how we train and how we live. Is it doesn't have to be the Golden Glove out at shortstop or the grand slam. Sometimes it's doing something that you think would scare you to death. I mean, in the backyard 2 hours beforehand, I was throwing up balls for pop-ups, and you would have thought there was 7 sticks of dynamite. And he was, running. He was like, that's just like throwing him too hard, throwing him too high. And so we get out there, pops up. I'm like, oh my God, he is going to run. And he just sat there and took it. And it was, I was like, God, I was like, so proud of you. But that's, again, like, we do that with our life, right? If it's not perfect, it's not good enough. But a lot of times it's those, you just sit there and you stand there and you don't run from it. You just take it. Whether you catch it or not, whether you nail the workout or not, whether you have the perfect day or not, whether you have the best conversation or not, whatever it is, sometimes you just got to stand there and take it. And the more you do that, the more likely you are to get through it again next time. The more likely you are. Same for him. Like I don't picture him running from the fly ball next time. He'll try again. But if he ran from it that time, guess what? He's probably ran from it next time. But now he feels like he's gotten so close, he's going to keep going for it. And that's how we got to feel in life, is that if we don't get it, we don't catch it, we don't grasp it, we don't understand it, we don't race fast enough, our training isn't goes. A lot of times we feel like it's not enough, but a lot of times it's what we need to get to where we need to go. Is right as those mistakes or those overcoming a fear or doing something even when it scares us, and just understanding that part of that process is had nothing to do physically. It was all a decision in his head, a decision from the chin up. I'm doing it, and it's done. And again, like that's we poo-poo like the 80% of workouts, right? That we talk about a lot. 10% of your workouts, your races even, are going to go awesome, and you're going to think you're going to go pro, and you're thinking, man, maybe I can do 30 hours next week. And the other 10%, you're just going to whiff. You're going to run from the fly ball. You're going to strike out. You're going to think you're the worst athlete ever. Your bike's going to be on eBay. You're already taking bids. And then the other 80%, it just is what it is. And it's those that are never get glamorized. But that makes up the meat of your season, the meat of your training life, just like the regular average days make up life. So the more you do it, the more capable you become. Those hard days, they won't feel so hard anymore. Because again, like I talked about before the podcast, like physical adaptation is so very similar to mental and emotional adaptation. One person's really, really, really hard is another one's easy, and vice versa, because of what you go through, and not just go through, is go through, move through, get to the other side, and don't stop, don't sit, don't be complacent, keep moving. Doesn't matter how you get over the obstacle, it's that you get over it. It's that you don't run, you don't run the other direction, you don't stop in front of it, you don't sit, you move through it. Doesn't have to be pretty. Sure as hell doesn't have to be perfect. But just get to the other side. And that could be a job change, a relationship change, a life change, a location change, or it could be feeling like shit to start your 30-minute run and making it through.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it was a conscious decision that I believe trains your subconscious to be more resilient, right? Because all those 40, 50, 30, 35-minute runs for the year or whatever it is that you felt like shit, but you did anyway. Do you want to talk about marginal gains? That's marginal gains. That adds up. Maybe not as much as you wanted to from a performance standpoint, but I firmly believe that from a mental and emotional and subconscious point, those marginal gains add up to increasing your ability to withstand and handle life tremendously, way more than it would physically.
Yeah, you talk about marginal gains, and on the theme of baseball, since you brought it up, you don't mind if I go off on this a little bit?
I was tossing you one up on that one.
No, but it sounds like he's a gamer, right? So
he is a gamer.
You've heard of Ozzie Smith, right? The shortstop for the Cardinals.
He was last night. I said you look like Ozzie Smith out there.
Oh, nice. So Ozzie is arguably the best defensive shortstop I've seen in my lifetime. But what a lot of people don't know about Ozzie, or probably didn't realize, is that he didn't have a very strong arm at all. And shortstop is a position. It's one of the longer throws on the field. Well, it certainly is in the infield. But he perfected his release. He got rid of the ball quicker than anybody. So he was but I'm sure he tried to strengthen his arm or whatever. But sometimes, I always equate this with people who, maybe older in life, maybe me, or 40s and 50s and everything, and then they want to be really fast. It's like, how do I get fast? It's like, well, good luck. It's like at some point the fast part isn't necessarily the focus. And we talk about it's not how fast you are, it's how little you slow down. But in the analogy with Ozzie worked on what he could control. There was controlling the controllables. He couldn't, just come out. He couldn't just develop a cannon. And, I'm sure he tried at some point, and I know that was longer ago, and there's science and whatever. But he worked on his release. He had the quickest release. So, like, when the ball was hit to him, he overcame his weak arm by getting rid of the ball faster and getting it over there quicker. So this is how I think about training, when I'm out there. And it's like, you talk about effort and execution, for example. And you mentioned like a 30-minute run that people just kind of poo-poo and don't think about. Well, I'm here to tell you today that I think you should start thinking about it, and thinking about it in terms of how can you make it feel easier. And, when we talk about form or your balance or however you're approaching that run, don't go out and just slog through it. Be thinking about ways to make it feel easier. And like yesterday, I went out on a long, whenever I'm doing like an hour and a half run or something like that, I gauge marginal gains not by speed. I gauge them by, I'm at mile 8. And, a month ago, mile 8 was just really trashing my legs. And now I'm trying to think about ways to, is it more about picking up the knees? Is it more about balance? Is it more about leaning just a hair? Whatever the case may be. Or even things like when you start the run and you're kind of going, you think you're going a little bit too fast. Now, you know this. Everybody knows this feeling. You go out and you feel good, and then all of a sudden, mile 4, mile 5, you're like, this might be a little hot. So what I like to work on all the time is that slow pullback, and then let it unfold a little bit more. And then, like, because I was thinking about yesterday, I was like, man, there's no way I could run a marathon right now unless I kind of figure something out. So I'm always working on ways to, I guess it would be called running with better form, or however you want, whatever that means to you. Because, you know, mile 8, mile 9, whatever, and your hip starts to hurt a little bit, that probably means it's not time to speed up. You know what I mean? So I'm just thinking about it in the big picture. I'm not thinking about trying to get like super fast. I know my top end is whatever, and that doesn't really matter. What matters is my ability to discern how I feel and match that with appropriate pacing. And these are the things that I really do believe make the difference, especially, let's say, if you're with me right now and you're training for Wisconsin or Chattanooga or something in 4 to 6 weeks. I don't think it's time to go out and just try to get super fast or like, improve yourself exponentially on the bike or the run or any of that kind of stuff. I think you can get more out of intelligently approaching your training and thinking about it in terms of how is that going to translate in a race? And am I going to be able to make that adjustment while I'm racing? You never know what the day is going to hold. You might feel a little bit better, but just be cognizant of what that means and how that feels. And it's just, you talk about training and what that is. It's really, you're training for a race, right? And in this case you are, but like you said, it's also good to be able to go out and just train for life and just feel good and stuff like that. But if you're training for a race, what does that mean? How does this translate right now with how I'm feeling, and how am I going to, sometimes it's a mental challenge. How do you get through? And I've talked about it before, but like sometimes if I'm running, my knee hurts, I'll go to my left side or, just try to rebalance or things like that. And sometimes I'll just like walk for 20 seconds and just recalibrate, because I know sometimes if I'm at mile 8 and I'm thinking about running 26, and if my hip starts to feel a certain way or whatever the case may be, I know I better make an adjustment, because I'm not going to get there. So, I'm just talking, if you're a top end triathlete or whatever, that's fine. That's one other thing. But like for most people, I do think it's smart. And, like riding those hills this weekend, I like to ride hills hard in training. But I also, now I'm starting to try to gear it back and actually practice what I'm going to do in the race, so it comes naturally. You know what I mean? Like spin up that hill and try not to crush yourself, because you're going to, by the end of that course out at Wisconsin, you're going to be feeling it if you're overdoing it on those hills. And I think I've had a tendency to do that a lot. And, you say, what did you say?
I say a lot of things.
I know. Oh, I know what it is. The best, this is just the best we got some days. And that makes sense. And sometimes for me, it's the best I got this year. I'm kind of at a point where I'm notoriously under trainer. So I'm looking for, that Ozzie Smith quick release to kind of compensate for not having the strong arm or not having that huge power. How am I going to play it smart? And you always talk about racing smart. And I think that's what it boils down to a lot, is sort of like positioning yourself so you can take that corner in a better way and get more speed out of it, or get into that hill and have a little more momentum so you can spin up it without problems. Those are the things I think we need to think about a lot more as we get closer to race day.
Is a lot of people give you shit sometimes for not being scientific and, for, with your theories, but the first 3 minutes of this last little spiel you gave almost summed up perfectly what Sam Laidlow, who's the runner-up at Kona last year, his dad as a coach, really almost basically summed up his entire 1 hour, 10-minute interview I listened to on the way here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, not totally, obviously, but he uses the exact phrase, and again, like Sam Laidlow is, in my opinion, probably the favorite if he's healthy to win Nice this year, because he lives in France. He's super familiar with the course and is absolutely has no fear when it comes to bike handling. And his dad is a well-known coaches a lot of pros outside of just the fact that his son is ridiculous, but he used the exact phrase. Yeah, because I mean, why? And when you talk about Ironman, he's talking about some of the current training that he was doing, and it feels so. It was, again, going back to the comparison they're making about life and its obstacles and hardships. But he said, we do very, very, very little, track workouts and VO2 stuff, because in Ironman it's not about how fast you go, it's about how little you slow down. And I was like, yeah, we use that too, and which is also a lot about life. Right? It's about perseverance. It's not about how fast you run through it. It's about how long you can make it. And that, not just from a physical standpoint, like how long can you be around, but, withstanding the things that life throws at you. Because I do believe that deteriorates your lifespan, how you deal with things, right? Not just from a physical standpoint, from mentally and emotionally. Mm-hmm. If you see someone that's happy and go lucky, you're like, they can, they might, they live forever, it seems like. There's almost a real, they go together, and vice versa. You see somebody that, they talk about it a lot with, people that are, die of heartbreak, right? Their spouse dies and they pass away months later, or they're sad and depressed, and they're inevitably going to, die earlier. But he talks about that, but he also talks about, his, how they train and his focus. And he says, my focus with Sam, he's talking about the three zones that they use, LT1, LT2, threshold, and then, high intensity. So he says, our goal isn't really to just focus on his threshold, because, an Ironman, it's like, we're really not going to be there. But our goal is to make his L1, which is, for, layman's terms, for age group athletes, like it's your Ironman zone 2 effort, is to make that as fast and as easy as possible. Right. So it's not about crushing yourself. It's about, making your current speed effortless, instead of, an RPE of, it used to be an RPE of 5-6 months ago. Now it's a 3, right? Because that's efficiency. That's how you get through things. But it's also very much, and he also talks about people, are so under recovered these days that their form breaks down, that they, they go out and they do all these crazy runs, and then they jump up 30 minutes from the next Sunday. And you're like, that's just asinine. He didn't say that. I'm saying that. It's just asinine that people jump up that much in run volume, because they have no form, no coordination, no stability. You're just breaking yourself down, and then wonder why they walk 20 miles in the marathon on race day. And sometimes, like you said, you just got what you got. And the point of that is just to be the best with what you got, not trying to be the worst of what you don't have. And get caught in that daily. Whether that's trying to be somebody or not, live a life that someone else has, be as fast as someone else who doesn't have your life. And so instead of being the best of what you got, you end up being the worst of what you don't have, or what you don't, or who you aren't. Acceptance is like such a gift. Who you are, where you are, what is happening. You don't have to like it. That's not what I'm preaching today. It's not what I'm telling you to do, is to accept the shit that life will throw at you. But running from it, hiding from it, fighting it to a degree that becomes detrimental to yourself, your mental and physical health, accepting it and just moving. That's it. I mean, that's some of the advice that I've tried to give Summer the last 7-10 days, and being in contact with her every day and just kind of checking in is you can't lie to somebody. And you can't bullshit. Tomorrow's going to be better. It's probably not. It's just take it a day at a time, and you will make it through. You will make it through. And a lot of people during these times, and this is kind of a story I told about myself, is a lot of people, will tell you how strong you are and how you're making it through, but you're not going to feel strong at all. You're going to feel weak as shit, because this is an unimaginable event that's happened to you and your kids and your family. And so when people tell you how strong you are, a lot of times it puts added pressure on yourself to be strong. When a lot of times it's okay to feel weak. But what I told her was that, and what I'll tell all of you is that one of the hardest points in my life when I was going through stuff that's not even close to this, I felt weak. I felt incapable. I feel like I was barely hanging on by a thread. I feel like I was barely making it. I was anxious. I was agitated. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how to make things right. I didn't know what to do. I just knew that making it through today was going to be okay. And that was good enough. And then years and years later, I looked back and realized how strong I was because I had realized how strong it made me. And you might not understand it and feel it and realize in the moment, and that's okay not to feel it, but it'll make you stronger by just making it through. And I think that's a message I want everyone to leave with, is that is good enough, right? Is just to make it through. It's, again, social media is 99% bullshit. It's highlight reels. It's fake. It's pointless. It's worthless. It's a lie. The rest of it is life. And making it through that is the thing. Just like training. You have a couple bang out workouts. Those are great. But the rest of it is just making it through. It's about who you become. It's about not running from obstacles. It's about just making your way through, get to the other side. And that's also so much about, especially long course racing. Mistakes are going to be made that you're going to make. Things are going to happen to you. And it's not about having the perfect race. It's about the decisions you make and how you choose to overcome the non-perfect day that a lot of times leads to the best possible outcome. Because something is going to go wrong on race day. Period. It just will. Something is going to go wrong on race day. So if you want to do well on race day, make sure you're out there doing things, not like, causing, really hard things to happen, but go into race day predicting and being okay with, what, some shit's probably going to happen today, but you know what? I'm going to make it through. I'm going to get to the finish line. It might just be making it today. It might just be completing it today, or it might be still obliterating my goal. And you know what? They're all good enough. And from measuring things to expectations to comparison and PRs, man, a lot of times the win is, the win is what you make it. And so going back to reminding yourself of how to train, how to race, how to live, wins are what you make it. And a lot of us turn our wins into losses from overthinking them or it not being good enough when, like you said before, sometimes just getting it done, that's the biggest win we can ask for.
That's good, man.
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up. That's been enough for today, I feel like. Unless you got another 4-minute clip version of Pro Coach you want to do.
No, you just said it, but it's sort of like, you always hear that, one of the best ways to get better in the sport is to race. You learn through racing. And, I'm here to say that, if you imagine racing and training, you can learn through that too. Because when you're out on that course, like I was this weekend, certainly it was about muscles and strength and physical strength, but, at some point you're going to get smacked in the face, and what are you going to do with it mentally? So just learn those lessons, I think, along the way, and just figure out a way to get through it and get it done.
Just get it done. And remember, those marginal gains, that's life. Life will take that 100%. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you tremendously and are incredibly thankful for this community. Not just the athletes that we coach and work with and our team, but also you listeners. We get a lot of fulfillment and ease of life through reading your comments and posts and Facebook or emails or whatever it is. I know you and I are both looking forward to seeing as many of you as we can in Wisconsin, as the kids say, in IRL, in real life, and hope to connect with you all there. We'll put out a little bit of a schedule of events as we get closer to time, so hopefully we can see everyone. But that's it. That is it for today. We'll be back on Thursday, regularly scheduled programming. And as always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. There's a one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike directly, he's available, crushingiron@gmail.com. Or if you need anything from me, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man. We love you, Summer.
See you.
See you, buddy.